You're in the shower, replaying an argument that never happened, and you're winning it. Every line lands. Every comeback is perfect. And then, somewhere around minute 4, you catch yourself mid-sentence, out loud, gesturing at a shampoo bottle like it personally wronged you. Or maybe it's smaller than that. You're driving to a conversation you haven't had yet. One you've already had 6 times in your head, with 6 different endings, none of which will happen the way you've rehearsed them. And somewhere in there you start wondering if this is normal, or if this is the thing where you should probably mention it to someone. Most people assume this means one of 2 things. Either you're anxious and catastrophizing, or you're lonely, filling a gap that real conversation should be filling. And sometimes, sure, that's part of it. But for a huge number of people who do this constantly, what's actually happening has almost nothing to do with anxiety or loneliness. It's something psychology has been quietly studying for decades. And it isn't a malfunction at all. Here's the reframe. In the 1960s, psychologist Jerome Singer began studying what he called imaginal processes. Essentially, the mind's habit of running unscripted internal simulations when it isn't fully occupied by the outside world. What he found, again and again, was that people who engage in this kind of imagined rehearsal aren't broken thinkers. They're often the most cognitively active ones in the room. Minds that don't switch off just because the external task has stopped. Which means that argument you were winning in the shower wasn't a warning sign. It was your brain doing something it's specifically built to do, testing scenarios before they happen, so that if they ever do happen, some part of you has already walked the path once. Now picture what's actually going on when you imagine that conversation. Linguists have a term for this: fictive interaction. Coined by researcher Neil Norrick, referring to the way people construct entire imagined dialogues, complete with the other person's voice, their tone, their pushback, even their objections you haven't heard yet. You're not just thinking about the conversation. You're simulating another whole person well enough to argue with them convincingly. That takes real cognitive machinery. It isn't idle, it's rehearsal. So who actually does this the most? Not the people who are the most anxious, though anxiety can turn the volume up. Mostly, it's people who think in scenes instead of bullet points. People whose minds process the world narratively, replaying, revising, testing outcomes before committing to one. High performers do this. Writers do this. People who care a lot about getting things right before they say them out loud do this constantly. Because for them, the stakes of the real conversation feel too high to walk into unrehearsed. There's a difference worth naming here, though. For some people, this imagined rehearsal is generative. It ends. They run the scenario. They extract what they needed. They move on with something resolved. For others, it loops. Same argument, same ending, again and again. And instead of preparing them for anything, it just wears a groove into the same unresolved feeling. That's not simulation anymore. That's rumination wearing simulation's clothes. The difference isn't that one person is doing something weird and the other isn't. It's whether the imagining stops. Here's the part that tends to surprise people. The ones who do this most aren't disconnected from real conversation. Often it's the opposite. They care so much about how the real version goes that they've built an entire rehearsal space in their head just to reduce the risk of getting it wrong in front of someone who actually matters to them. The imagined argument in the shower isn't a substitute for connection. It's often proof of how much the real connection means. And if you're someone who's never done this, who's a little baffled by people who narrate entire conversations to their windshield, it's worth understanding that this isn't a person avoiding reality. It's a person who processes reality by living inside it twice. Once in imagination, once for real. So if you've ever felt a little embarrassed catching yourself mid-argument with someone who isn't there, it might help to know that isn't a sign something's wrong with how your mind works. It's a sign of exactly how it works. Running simulations quietly in the background, because some part of you takes the real version seriously enough to rehearse it first. The only real question worth asking isn't why you do this. It's whether the version in your head ever lets you go, or whether it just keeps handing you the same scene on a loop. Because one of those is preparation. The other one is just staying in a room you never actually left. If any part of this sounded familiar, let me know in the comments which version you do. The kind that resolves, or the kind that loops.